After the experience, maybe my husband or children would say, "Where are you going?" And to speak without identification, I mean, I was just so aware. My response would be, "It thinks it wants a drink of water now," or "It thinks it's walking outside now." But to say there was such a rub. It was so false, but I could say it thinks it wants a drink of water. It was nothing I figured out. It was just living in integrity. It was what was left. But I wasn't even sure I wanted a drink of water. No one is until you're drinking it. How can you be? You're guessing. It's a future. So just living out of that kind of inquiry and process being answered. And it's it sounds a little weird, but Karen, you go full measure, so I can only meet your questions with the most authentic response that I could give. And if it's difficult for some of you to understand my responses, then I apologize for that. Or do I? Oh, anyone that can't understand this, it's just so simple that you don't need it. And, everything is working time, everything on time.
It's amazing, actually, Katie. I've been reading lots of different information of late, and it's all, it's all stepping stones. When you talk about it, and you talk about that it wanted a drink, and how would you know? Because, you're predicting something in the future.
It wanted a drink, it thought. That doesn't make the thought valid.
And it also doesn't make the thought you. And this is the part that I think I'm really fascinated with at the moment. I started asking a question of myself of, when I talk to myself, who's listening? And when I ask that question of myself, it kind of takes me into a place of absolute silence inside, where I realize that silence and that awareness, well, I'm listening. Well, no, I'm doing the talking. No, now there's just silence. There's just nothing happening. And that same silence is a silence that is there when I wake up in the morning, before I go into this frenzy of thought and then have a party with the thought and then make the thought who I am. But when I realize that I'm not what I think and I'm not what I believe, I'm free. And I think that's the most powerful sense. But I guess the question around that, though, is that we live in a world where people believe what they believe, and we project our beliefs out onto others and out onto the world outside. So does that then mean that the whole world that we see is just an illusion?
Well, if you point all that back to yourself, and let's watch my attempt. It's like the world believes what it believes I think. So it always takes me back to myself. I don't know what the world thinks. The world only exists because I am considering a world right now. It's all in my head. So it's a one-man show.
Stop it. Wow. That's the most profound answer. Because the world only exists based on what I believe it to be.
The end.
Our work here is done. So, Katie, what about...
There's no exception to that, too.
Right. Because I was just, so what about? But what about? And then what about? So there's no exception to that.